recently, April 1, article police force to be renamed. That is what Minister Ben is quoted as saying. Police force to be renamed. And the thing is on April 1. So I have to say, that got to be an All Fool's Day joke. I said I got to be an All Fool's Day joke. You know, April Fool. Let's say we can say All Fool's Day, April the 4th. Police force is to be renamed. And here what the thing say, I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it. In keeping with the modernization plans for the Guyana security sector, a comprehensive reform is currently underway, starting with the renaming of the Guyana Police Force. Minister of Home Affairs Robeson, while addressing the recent Regional Security System Council of Ministers meeting, disclosed that the Guyana Police Force will soon be known as the Guyana Police Service. The name change aims to portray a better image of the organization, and government members said it will benefit all Guyanese. And according to Minister Ben, work is being done to ensure there is a smooth transition. Look, I tell you, Fool's Day joke, April Fool's Day joke. Ben is quoted there saying, we are looking at reforming the Guyana Police Force into police service. Our commissioner and staff have been diligently working on establishing a police academy, complete with buildings and training facilities, Minister Ben remarked. He reaffirmed Guyana's commitment to becoming a leader and a significant resource for the Caribbean within the RSS framework. RSS is supposed to be the regional security system, but as we have said, they left out a major vowel, they left out the A. He addressed the need for improved leadership, particularly the middle level, highlighting the importance of training, integrity, and professionalism within the force. Ben also discussed the potential benefits of exchanging personnel with other jurisdictions to enhance knowledge sharing and training methodologies. As such, he also underscored the importance of identifying strengths and weaknesses to facilitate targeted improvements and emphasized the significance of continuous training and exemplary leadership to elevate the overall integrity and professionalism of the police service. The Guyana Police Force will soon be known as the Guyana Police Service. The police force is divided into 7 policing divisions with various branches, each commanded by divisional or branch commander who report to the Commissioner of Police. The objective of the force as outlined in the Police Act include the preservation of law and order, peace, the repression of internal disturbances, protection of property, apprehension of offenders, enforcement of laws, and the prevention and detection of crime. The article goes on, the recent modernization efforts have seen the establishment of a community relations department to strengthen police community relations, promote safe communities, and enhance preventative policing strategies through positive engagements and public trust. And then you know the Salawala. Let me go read the Salawala part for y'all. This year, 30.3 billion has been allocated to the Guyana Police Force. Of this sum, 1 billion has been approved to acquire additional vehicles, motorcycles, boat, and engine to boost response capabilities of the Guyana Police Force, and 5 billion for the rehabilitation of police stations. Additionally, 300 body cameras will be procured for police ranks. This investment has led to the advancement of works in various key areas, including command centers, criminal investigation department, and living quarters of police personnel in several regions. Also, construction of a state-of-the-art 12-story breakdown police station with a budget of 5.4 billion is currently underway. And here, piece more of the BS what they're talking about. In 2013, the APNU AFC government voted against the second reading of a bill intended to change the name of the Guyana Police Force to the Guyana Police Service. No one from the APNU opposition spoke on the police change of name bill 2013, and the People's Progressive Party government lost the vote by 27 to 29 when the votes were tallied. The name change was long proposed with successive police reform recommendations over the years. That's the article. Now, I get a lot to say on it. But before I comment, let me bring in Mr. Conway to tell me or to tell us what he thinks about this police force to be renamed. And significantly, as I've said, this announcement came on April 1, All Fool's Day. And I think it's an All Fool's Day joke. Mr. Conway, what are your views about this proposed change?
It sounds like an All Fools Day joke, but it is no joke, you know. And you don't just overnight just change a name for namesake and expect that you'll have better performance and increase all kind of efficiency and effectiveness. That if you're going to change the name, you have to go to Parliament, like they did in 2013, with what you call the Police Change of Name Bill 2013, Bill number 14 of 2023. And I have a copy of the bill, you know. And the explanation memorandum said the bill seeks to change the name of the Police Act to Police Service Act. It changes the name of the police force to the Police Service and the name of the Police Discipline Act to the Police Services Act. The bill makes similar changes to the Police Complaints Authority Act and in all subsidiary legislation. Accordingly, all laws are to be read and construed in accordance with the changes of name effected by the Act. Yes, and they took it to Parliament and it was vitiated. The opposition voted against him. Apparently, like they didn't have full membership there on both sides, and the opposition had the majority there, and they vitiated that bill. So maybe Mr. Ben will have to come back with another bill. I think, and that bill was Clement Roy is the man who piloted that bill. So if you're going to change the name, it doesn't mean to say that you can things would be efficient and effective. I'll talk a little more about that. That change the name sometimes doesn't mean a thing. It is just talk and talk and still more talk. But the background is, the foundation is that for the name to change, you have to go to Parliament, you have to pilot the bill, and then you gotta vote for it. Like like what they did with the fire service, where they changed the name for the fire service. So the way they changed the name to fire and a rescue service instead of fire service, fire and a rescue service. But they have to go to Parliament and change it. So that should be the first step. Apparently, the minister is jumping the gun. But we talk about the things that got to come into place if you want a change of name and you want better or more efficient performance.
Now let me say this. Let me be clear about this. Changing the name of any organization can't change the organization. Changing the name of the Guyana Police Force to the Guyana Police Service cannot change what is going on in the Guyana Police Force. And I speak from a position of authority because I have said when the IDB reform started, sometime it have been, I think, around, no, Mr. Felix was the commissioner, around 2005 or sometime then, I was identified by the police I command, by the senior officers in the police force, and by the government to lead that reform process. I was the person identified. And I worked on that program until around 2006, after the election, and Roy became the Minister of Home Affairs. Henry Green, who by then sometime had become the commissioner, told him that he wasn't comfortable that he, as a commissioner, wasn't leading the reform project. Like, there was an article in Kaichon News about it. If you do the research, you will see. And Green started to do it. And from then, and Mr. Conway will tell you, nothing happened with that reform process. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So they could still be talking about it. But one of the things we recognize that if you're to change an organization, and we did it with the IDB, because when the IDB come, it's not they just brought something to us. We had days of interaction with the police training school at the time. I think Mr. Conway and other senior officers would have been there to identify the weaknesses, to identify how we're going to approach the changes that were required, how they are going to be funded. And that is how the IDB security sector reform program came about, through a proper process. With the PS and all of us involved in this discussion. And we identified, as we have said, that if you want to change an organization, any organization, not only the police force, you have to look at certain things. You have to look at the structure. You have to look at the policies. You have to look at the personnel. In terms of structure, when we talk about structure, we're talking about the ranks, the different ranks. We're talking about how the divisions and the stations are located. The command structure in those divisions, all of that we got to look at. This release, they're saying that the several reform, the name change was long proposed within successive police reform recommendations over the years. Yeah, they also recommended that the structure of the force, this hierarchical military structure, should be flattened. I remember that very well, because as it is now, the Guyana Police Force's structure from constable to commissioner is one of the tallest structures in the world. You get 13 levels from constable right up to commissioner. And that doesn't include apprentice. It doesn't include station sergeant, which is a rank in the law. It doesn't include cadet of ASPs on probation, which you have so many now. And if you include those, you talk about 60 levels. And we had identified that because of those overlapping levels, problems are created, because there's no distinction between the role of a lance corporal and a corporal, very little between the role of a corporal and a sergeant, and it goes on like that. So the people had recommended that the structure should be flattened, and it will aid better communication and all of that. So you're talking about this one aspect. So you have to look at the structure of the organization. We talk about changing an organization now. Not just going to parliament and change the name from force to service and believe, wada, shajam, everything is going to fall in place. No, you have to look, one, at the structure. And when we talk about structure again, rank structure, how they are deployed to serve the communities. Then we're talking about station, we're talking about outposts, we're talking about the patrols. You have to look at that carefully. And then you have to look, as I've said, the policies. That is critical. We were asked to look at the policies or the standing orders or the SOPs, whatever you want to call it. And these vindictive, corrupt people decide when they wanted to get rid of me on Conway for the Police Service Commission. Oh, the fact that we were reviewing it and that we were paid a stipend, that amounted to fraud. So they all us before the court. All us. And you have a standing order now, 2002, the latest revision, which speaks about governor, which speaks about steamer fare, which speaks about railway fare, and all sorts of outdated languages. They're still there on today like today. And this is not an all fool's day joke. On today like today, those things are still there. You have to look at your policies. You look at your structure, you look at your policies, your operational order, your standing order, your SOPs. You have to look at all of those things and update those things to make sure that they reflect the current situation. And let me say this, we have said it before. We know that the Guyana Police Force, post 2021, when we were charged, contracted with the University of Guyana to assist in revising the standing order. Even though they said that the standing order was revised and there was no need for James to employ us in 2019 to assist with the revision of the standing order, they have contracted. I have a copy of the contract. They have contracted with the University of Guyana to assist in the review and and revising the standing order. And I said before, and I've said, no university, and this is not meant to knock the university, but when you talk about the standing order of the police, you have to have people with policing experience to assist in that process. And no professor from the university or no professor from no law school can revise or create standing orders, appropriate standing orders for the Guyana Police Force or any police force for that matter. So you have to look at your policies. And then you have to look at your personnel. I made some note here about the personnel issue. You have to look at the note, you have to look at personnel. And when you look at personnel, what are you looking for? Let me, student, take your notes. Take notes. You have to make sure that they are well trained. That goes without saying. Your personnel have to be well trained. They have to be disciplined. Both of those aspects are now lacking in the police force. The training is not there, the discipline is not there. You have to look at for them to be accountable. People have got to be accountable for their actions. Right now, accountability has gone through the window. So things like the Discipline Act that they're talking about hardly exist, if it existed in the breach. People are not disciplined for infraction, and because of lack of knowledge. The officers and the other people don't know what to do. And then you have to look at people got to be motivated. You have now a demotivated workforce. Someone told me a few days ago that from 2020 to current day, you have in excess of 400 members of the Guyana Police Force. Listen to this carefully. Between 2020 and 2024 to date, over 400 members of the Guyana Police Force have resigned, walk off the job. In other words, they've gone absent without leave or retired. Over 400. And if you remember the recent officers' conference, the acting commissioner of the extended squatter said so to the public that we have difficulties in attracting and maintaining members of the force. We're just moving on. A man spoke to me last week. After 21 years, he said he couldn't take it any longer. He has moved on. A woman wrote something to me a few weeks ago. Her husband had something like 20-something years service as a sergeant and decided to move on. And she said that he regret that he didn't move on before because his package where he is now is far in excess, far more lucrative than what he earned as a sergeant in the police force. You have to get, and in Guyana, you have to have a force that is free from political interference. And no one can deny political interference, dog whistles. Vice President make a statement about being disappointed in Soku, in not charging Winston Jordan, the former finance minister. And a couple of days after or so, Jordan is arrested and charged. Takuma Gonsi makes a speech on the East Coast, and somebody give a dog whistle, and he is arrested and charged with some sedition or some thing like that. You have that interference. You had a case, I'd like to remind you, where the now magistrate Tamika Clark was she was a lawyer, arrested by Soku for advising her client not to give a statement to the police. She was arrested by the police. And the Attorney General, Anil Nandlal, SC, MP, said that he instructed them to put her on bail. And then he makes some statement of he being the constitutional advisor or something, some crap like that to the police force. That is interference. He has no authority, no right to have called and instructed for her to go on bail. Those are matters for the police to resolve. Police, I command. But, and you know, I said it because at the time when that was reported, the lawyer for Ms. Clark called the Attorney General. That is what was reported. He called the Attorney. Why did he call the Attorney General? Call the Attorney General because he knows that is where the power there. That is where the power lies. So he called him. So those type of interference, you're gonna have you can't have those things if you're gonna. That is why you gotta look at to change the organization. And you gotta promote people based on merit. People are demotivated because people will tell you, men and women, that they have worked for years diligently and they are not being recognized. And people, because of their political affiliation, are being recognized. You got a man get 3 promotions in the police force. 3. Prem Narayan, 3 promotions. He promoted from constable to corporal, corporal to inspector, and from inspector to superintendent. Unprecedented, unheard of. This man doesn't have any special qualification apart from his political affiliation. None. 3 promotions in the police force. 3 to corporal, from constable to corporal, corporal to inspector, inspector to superintendent. And you want to tell me that you changing the name can change all of those things? And if you recall, let me tell you too, because I know when we did the research, when they had the fiasco at Ashman Building in Atfield Street, when it was alleged that people were trying to break in to the chairman of the Election Commission's office. They're trying to break in. Narayan, a police inspector, was one of those persons. At the time, he was stationed at West Demerara, Leonora, I think it was. and he had left to go to court somewhere in town, found himself at the Ashman building in the presence of the now president and vice president and those people. And it is alleged that they tried to break in to the chairman office. The man was rewarded, and the man is promoted from inspector to superintendent, right? And as I said, some of these people we're talking about, put them to write a proper report or a proper statement. The evidence is there. Look at the statement when they try to cover up for Dharam Lal on the Essequibo coast. Kemraj Shifbran wrote a statement. Even a rookie constable would have done better. But the man is a superintendent in charge of a police division. So people are being promoted based on political affiliation, and that must affect the organization. It will affect the morale of those who are not promoted, and it's going to affect the organization as a whole, the perception, the reputation of the organization. So the other thing, and then somebody mentioned there I should talk about salaries. Somebody said I should talk about salaries. And I don't think I need to mention that here on this program now. I don't think we have sufficient time to go into that, but I'm going to make a slight reference. We said people must, an assessment. You have to have proper assessment of forces. Do you know that we have a Guyana Police Force? The Guyana Police Force, they do no annual assessment of the ranks, none. Back in the day, you have annual confidential reports. So the ranks performance during the course of the year is assessed, and so therefore when it comes to promotion and those things, a record is there. Those things have gone through the window years now. Not now, years now. But I'm saying that if you want to talk about reform, if you're going to talk about change, those are the things you have to look at. How are ranks assessed? Part of the problem that you have, and I mentioned it here, is that people wait until promotion time to say, oh, this man is no good, you don't perform. Check the person's file. There's nothing in there to reflect that. Nothing. Nothing is there to reflect that. So people are not assessed. When I joined the force, you had ACR, Annual Confidential Report, and based on your report, you were said to be entitled to a merit increment. All of those things gone through the window. All of those things have gone through the window, and the reform process that I was in charge of, we were to look at all of that. All of that. So what I do, you're just spiteful people. All year, the person they're working. When promotion time, they tell you, they write to the Police Service Commission, of which I was the chairman, that John Jones should not be considered for promotion at this time. Why? When you ask the question why, nobody can give no answer. Or the right to tell you something he has not been performing. Check the person's file. Nothing like that is reflected in the person's file. Nothing. As a matter of fact, it is even worse than that. Because, I'll call the name, man. I'll call the name. Let us sue if they want to sue. Brutus had a pending disciplinary matter before the Police Service Commission in 2020 when I was chair. And he wrote to the Police Service Commission in his capacity as admin. And he identified 13 ranks that should not be promoted because they had pending disciplinary matters. I have the ranks name on file. I ain't talking with water in my mouth. But in the same document, he is recommending himself to be promoted. Can you imagine that? The Chief Justice did say that he was self-serving. But I'm telling you, that's the type of thing you have. This man is recommending to the Police Service Commission that ranks by name who have pending disciplinary matters should not be considered for promotion. But he who had a pending disciplinary matter at the same time is recommended for promotion. Those things are wrong. And when you talk about it, people jump up and then making statement about reform, and the president making statement about reform, and the vice president spewing nonsense about reform. Reform is not only changing a name. Reform is not only changing a name. It has more to do with that. I've said a lot. Let me bring in Mr. Conway, and then we're going to continue. CC, let me hear your views, man.
As you mentioned, reform is not only changing a name. Lots of things has got to come into place. And I read with great interest the statement coming from Ben. Part of it is saying $14.3 billion for vehicles and for vehicles. And here it is in today's paper, Stabrook News, page 16, heading FM Bacchus Construction donates motorcycle to police. And let me read it. Fawaz Bacchus, the managing director of MF Bacchus Construction and Transportation Service, located at Fairfield on the Escobar Coast, yesterday donated 4 new motorcycles to the Guyana Police Force Transport Department. The motorcycles will be used in Region Police Division 2, number 2, according to a release from the police force. Deputy Commissioner Administration, I know we get it from Calvin Bonnet, Calvin Brutus masquerading, received a donation on behalf of the GPF at the Tactical Service Unit Square, Ivlery Yorton. Under the strategic pillar of partnership, the release said that the GPF continue to foster and strengthen relationship with private sector and corporate donors to enhance and support safer and more secure communities. And here what Bacchus said, donating 4 motorcycles would aid the GPF efforts in traffic enforcement and promoting public safety, especially in the regional division 2. Here is it, $13.3 billion to purchase vehicles, and you're taking donation from a businessman in India's Equivalent Coast there. You're compromising yourself. Now let's go back to the reform. I remember, Paul, vividly you were heading it, and then Gani Green say, hey, no, by me as the commissioner, I got to head it. I play a critical part of it, because it had several components, and I come down to one. That was strategic management. We had a comprehensive training program, a 1-year comprehensive training program, which I headed, which I saw to from beginning to end. And we had ISIS in Guyana, Integrated Crime Information System, where information from the divisions were inputted in a computer and sent to I think it was Ministry of Affairs, where they had what they call policy analysts looking at the figures and then coming up with information data to us on I think it was on a monthly basis. But Parliamentary used to give us it medicinally, bits and pieces, when the real control should have been at the police headquarters. So far for that. Now they had this comprehensive training program, and then they had what you call a strategic unit. Capita Simmons, and I was part of it, submitted what they call a strategic management plan for the police force, 2011-2015. And they made they submitted what they call some risk analysis. I think Ben should go back to that strategic plan. If he wants, I get a copy available, because I was part of it and they gave me a copy. That if he wants, he should go back to it and listen and read what it said, because they had 25 risk analysis. I will give you some of them that the police must look at, and that's what Ben must look at before we jump in all about change name. Change name ain't doing nothing. You only changing the name. And let me give you some of them. There will be a lack of suitable equipment for officers of the GPF to meet with new and emerging challenges. In example, increase marine air capacity, improve vehicles. 2, the Ministry of Affairs does not have a strategic plan to give overall guidance to the GPF. 3, managers of the GPF will not be equipped to deal with new and emerging challenges arising from modernization. 4, there will be insufficient succession planning to ensure that skilled resources are in place to deal with the plan. Staff of the police force may be resistant to change, so that the activities outlined in the plan may not be achieved or will be delayed. And this one here, alleged and perceived corruption within the GPF will adversely affect the public trust and confidence in the police. Another one, insufficient human resources will be made available to the police to implement the plan. Another one, an increase in the economy of Guyana may increase the demands of the GPF, which cannot be managed with the existing resources. we are a rich country. And this one, the last one I'm going to read, there may be implications of the nature and type of criminality in Guyana as a result of increase in the population and or an influx of non-Guyanese national. So all these things are there, and I will ask Ben to read them, to go over them, to have discussion with his officers, so that if they look at these things here, they might be able to make the police force far better than what it is. So changing the name is just waste of time. It's just a wishy-washy arrangement. But go back to the plan, and they had the sitting security strengthening plan, but then COVID-19 kill it. But they need to look properly at reform, Paul, properly at reform, and go back to the government spend a whole lot of money. It spent millions and millions and dollars on the citizen security plan. And perhaps all those things they throw them in the dustbin and they forget about them. And we're trying to reinvent the wheel. But you don't reinvent the wheel by just changing a name from police force to police service.
Well said, my brother. Let me talk about some of the reform. Continue to talk about reform. When I was heading that project, I had an interaction with Gail Teixeira, who was for a period Minister of Home Affairs, relating to the reform. And I was asked a direct question in relation to specific officers. And I told her then that a reformed Guyana Police Force has no place for certain officers. And I named them. I said, if you're going to reform this police force, these people have got to go. And I told her, I said, we're not going to dismiss them. We're not going to dismiss them. Many of them are entitled to early retirement, but they got to go off. They got to go off because the force cannot be reformed when these people continue to be in the organization. And the same thing obtains today. Perhaps even it is even more relevant now that you cannot reform the Guyana Police Force when you have people against whom credible allegations of corruption are made. You have people who are self-centered. You got two senior officers, Ikin and Brutus, applying for sand mining concession on the highway. The vice president said, don't it. Those things are conflict. You have so many others. You have an allegation that a senior police officer attempted to launder $16.5 million to the police credit union. How are you going to reform with those people in key positions? I have said it repeatedly that if you want to reform, one of the things you got to start doing is by easing out some people. They are bad for the image of the force. They are bad. They are corrupt. They are dishonest. They are unprofessional. And some of them are downright dunces. And they are just political puppets. And the organization cannot be reformed once they remain in those positions. I said so since when Nigel Appy was there. There was a engagement with the Prime Minister at the Artachon Convention Center. And I made that. I think I even wrote a letter about it. You cannot reform the force with certain people in it. And this is some studies, studies. I think CC, I had loaned you a book in the office of constable. In the office of constable, which was used as a guideline. This is a man from the Metropolitan Police Force in England. And that book was used as a guideline to reform police forces. As a matter of fact, one of the officers came to me when we were doing reform and looking at the way forward for the force. That book was presented to me, was given to me as a gift by one of the persons who was on that team. So you cannot reform with those persons around. And when we talk about, somebody talk about remunerations, how you can motivate people when, as it is now? Let me pull up the thing disappeared. Let me find it back. You talking about paying people allowances. Somebody talk about salaries and allowances. I had a chart with some of the allowances here. Permit me, let me see if I could find it back. Right? Yes, here it is. Education allowance. And folks, what I'm telling you, this is not something, this is what I mean now, you know. Education allowance in the Guyana Police Force is $320 Guyana dollars taxable. 320. And so when you take out the tax, you might come like about 314. That's what you get for education allowance. If you have A levels, well, now it's not A levels, now it's CXC and so on. But A levels should be $75. O levels $50. Right now, if you have a UG diploma, you are paid $250. That is the education allowance you get for UG diploma. Meals allowance, $2,250 a month. Laundry allowance for officers is $500 Guyana dollars a month, and for inspectors is $1,000. They have an allowance they call proficiency allowance, $40 a month. Driving allowance, if you're A grade driver, you get $600. If you're a B grade driver, you get $400. If you're C grade, you get $300. House allowance ranges from $4,500 to 11,000, I think it is. There's a mistake there. Separation allowance. If you're separated from your family, you're on those far-flung locations, they pay you $2.50 a day for separation allowance. For you to leave your family and go in the bush, gone somewhere, one of those locations that entitled to separation allowance is $2.50. And children know this is not April Fool joke. This is the real thing. When I got the information, I had to confirm that is what it is. Then you get station allowance for specific locations like those areas in the interior border area. You get in $2,400 to $2,800 station allowance per month. $2,400 to $2,800 per month. Risk allowance. If you have some area risk allowance, like people at the presidential guard put your life on the line for the president, and other areas that deem to you have risk allowance, is $150 to $105 a month, depending on your rank, right? There's a commuted overtime that they pay. And what is the commuted overtime? Because you know police don't work 8 hours, 12 hours, sometimes longer than that. So it ranges from $17,960 a month to $4,400 a month. A detective allowance for officer is $100. For inspector is $80. For sergeants is $70. And for constables is $50 a month. That's what's going on. 50. God know, Leslie, Ben, those figures that I quoted there are all in Guyana dollars. So the $50 a month, what the detective constable getting as detective a month, Guyana dollars. And we're saying that if you want to reform, if you want to motivate people, you got to look at all of these things. Not only changing the name and you make big nice that the name is changed. And here what the minister said. The name change aims to portray a better image of the organization, and government members said it will benefit all Guyanese. And according to Minister Ben, work is being done to ensure there's a smooth transition. A name change will portray a better image. How would a name change in and of itself portray a better image? Yes, it's done, these people done. You just change a name from force to service, and there's a better image. And you get people laundering money. You get people brutalizing people. You get people involved in all type of acts of corruption, not only police force, but in the government. And you want to tell me that this name change is going to portray a better image. Ben, take your medication, yeah? Take your medication. Something is wrong with you when you are making these foolish statements. And remember, this is not an isolated foolish statement made on All Fool's Day. We could have forgive you for saying that this is an All Fool's Day joke. But remember, you tell people that if they get an illegal firearm, put it in a bag and pass by the station and throw it in the yard. That's the way to deal with it. Put it in a bag, pass by the station, and throw it in the yard. Remember, you're at a fire scene, telling the fire officers, train people that you should know dirty than them on. And they should tell the people to put the hose at the source of the fire. And all them stupid statements you have made. I said before, and I'm saying it again, it's time you take your rest. It's time you tell them this work is too much for you. Because I was about to say, your credibility, but I don't think you have any credibility left. If perchance you have a little left, it is rapidly eroding. So you should really, really take a risk. Because you sound delusional when you're making these statements. And you're not the only one sounding delusional. Listen tomorrow, you're gonna hear delusions of grandeur. You're gonna hear them on the thing there. And they said we are looking to reform the police force into police service. Our commission staff have been diligently working to establish a police academy, complete with buildings and training facilities. We are complete with building and training facilities. So if you want to have an academy, it's about building and training facilities. What about what about your teaching? What about your lecturers? What about your subjects and all of those type of things? Those things are not important. At least even if they're going on, it's not important for you to mention it. So you don't mention that. Then he said you just need to improve leadership, particularly at the middle management level. Well, let me tell you something. Given what's going on now in the police force, not only at the middle management level, because middle management were traditionally thought to be inspector, chief inspector, assistant superintendent, deputy superintendent level. That I think that was traditionally thought to be the middle management. But look above that. Look at the superintendent, senior superintendent, assistant commissioner, commissioner level. They need training too, perhaps even more than the ones below. They need training as well. So when you talk about training at levels, improve leadership, which is sadly lacking in the police force now, sadly lacking. Leadership is sadly lacking. You have to look at all of that. This has to be a comprehensive thing, not just changing the name from force to service and what things are going to improve. They will not improve. They will not improve. So let me understand this. Mr. Conway, let me hear what you got to say on this.
Let me just add to some of the things that you mentioned, or restate some things for the sake of emphasis. And going back to the same strategic plan 2011, Capital Simmons, and just to back up some of the things that they put in writing in the plan, alleged and perceived corruption within the GPF will adversely affect public trust and confidence in the police. And let me tell you a little story. 2 weeks ago, I went to a certain police station. I won't name it. And they had 4 traffic ranks inside there. And the gaffing. And one man said, I only scored 8 points this morning. I gotta go back to the road and get some more points. Another one said, I don't give me 10 points already. And they're talking about points. And then, I will inquire. So I made some inquiry later on. And when I discovered that the points they're talking about, when they say they make a point, it's $1,000 bribe they're talking about. So once say you only make 8 points in the morning, you only get $8,000, and you gotta get 2 more for tally for the day. So the corruption is there. And this one too, an increase in the economy of Guyana may increase the demands of the GPF, which cannot be managed with existing resources. When they wrote this document, we didn't strike oil. Perhaps the people had a vision. Now they're talking about increase in the economy of Guyana may increase the demands of the GPF, which cannot be managed with the existing resources. They're not looking at that. And this final one, which I'm going to talk about, there may be implications of the nature and type of criminality in Guyana as a result of increase in the population. And here is part of it, and or the influx of non-Guyanese national. We get all the Venezuelan coming by the place. We get also the Brazil and other thing there. Venezuelan, I think, was more Venezuelan in the region 1 than Guyanese in the place there. And they're not looking